Yeah, kid. Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Handsome Homebuyer Podcast. My name is Charles, aka the Handsome Homebuyer, formerly Captain Permit, but we still love him. So if you need him, 516-513-8838. Anything permit related, anything plans related, anything survey related. And Lord knows, if you're in real estate, if you're a real estate attorney, you need him. If you're a realtor, you need him. If you're an investor, you don't want them, but you absolutely need them. 516-513-8838. Obviously, if you have a house that smells like cat pee, a Section 8 package, a 5-unit apartment building, I don't care what it is. I'm quick. I'm easy. Lord knows I'm a good time. I want to buy it. 516-777 sold. All right, podcast today. We're going commercial. Usually we don't do this. We usually do residential. We usually do all kinds of other strange things. But today we're talking commercial real estate. My opinion, commercial real estate, ripe for a takeover. This young lady, and I mean young, 10 years in the business, 38 years old when she started at 28. Commercial is very tough. Top 40 under 40, still under 40, and then the top 40. So it continues. Amanda Gordon.
Thank you for that intro.
See, you had no idea what you were getting into when you stumbled into me a couple days ago.
Sure.
Or maybe a week ago. All right, so we're talking commercial real estate. Commercial real estate, so very interesting, because I've been doing a lot of market research lately. On Long Island, 20% of the available building stock, so when I say building, like any type of structure, 20% of it is commercial, 80% of it is residential. So way more residential than commercial. But commissions paid out year over year in commercial, literally 600% more. It's like the 80-20 rule. You guys are focusing on 20%, making 80% of the money. Realtors are running around like crazy, chickens without a head on, fighting over the 80%, but only making 20% of the money. What's up?
Well, I think you know the answer to that. It's larger deal sizes. They're business decisions, not emotional decisions.
Yep.
Most of the deals that we work on are all in-house, meaning I don't need co-brokers, which is, we obviously get a larger portion then. There's $10 million deals that go on that people don't even blink an eye. When it comes to residential real estate, you're at $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.3 million. Someone only wants to spend so much on their house. But when they're buying commercial, that's their profession. They're looking to make more money. So the $5 million deals, $10 million deals obviously just have higher fees.
No, it makes sense. And it takes as much work, if not sometimes less work, to do a bigger deal than it does to do a smaller deal. So it makes sense. I mean, listen, you're smart. So let's bring it back a little bit. You work for Silver. I love Silver. I've never met the broker owner. I really would like to. I met Anthony about 4 years ago. He was on the podcast. Great guy. Just gets better looking every day. He's like, what is he, the George Clooney of commercial real estate, I said the other day?
Sure.
So you guys focus. So for people who don't understand what commercial is, because commercial real estate isn't necessarily retail or storefront. It's any multifamily that is 5 units or more, and then anything that you would consider commercial, like mixed use, retail, industrial, etc.
Correct.
So you guys do pretty much everything except industrial, but retail is really like your bread and butter. You guys know retail inside and out. I'm constantly getting emails with strip centers and stuff like that. So to kind of bring it back, talk about how you got into commercial real estate, because commercial real estate is hard. I feel like it takes a while for I mean, you're shaking your head. Hard for us normal people. Maybe for you, not as hard. Maybe you got into it and took off really fast. But most people, I feel like, go 6 to 12 months without making any money at a minimum. And there's not a ton of education out there. And you really have to know your stuff. Whereas with single family homes, you walk in, it's an emotional decision. People are like, oh my God, granite countertops, I'm buying it, let's go. Whereas you have to understand cap rates and market trends and price per square foot on the leasing side, on the sales side, What's the difference between triple net and the, national operators and who's looking where? It's a lot of shit.
I actually got into this industry at 19. I worked at Breslin Realty as a retail leasing broker, did that for about 8 years, 10 years, and then came in over to the sales side, mainly because of the incentive of what you were talking before, larger fees. Now, I did very good with leasing, but it is a lot of running around. I did a lot of landlord rep. I leased to nail salons, bagel stores. I really specialized in mom and pops because a lot of brokers didn't want to deal with them. So it was just easy for me to pick up. Now, when I came to Adam's office at Silver Properties, there is no formal training. The best training is your life experience. And as I have grown in this business, just like any sales job, it's less about the industry and more about who you are, what you represent, and what you want to get accomplished in a day. Learning cap rates, learning about triple net, learning about all of the terms that may scare off people would take me less than 30 days to educate anyone at any skill level. It's not about knowing everything because that could be taught very quickly. It's about having perseverance. It's about knowing how to push on a call and continuing in that career long term.
Well, that's interesting. So let's talk about, so for people who don't know, let's dive back into the leasing part, because you started out as leasing, now you're doing sales. Talk about leasing. Like, a lot of agents don't realize just how lucrative leasing can be, and understanding kind of the 7-3 structure. And then ultimately kind of why did you go from leasing to sales? Because they're two totally different animals.
They are. Leasing, I'm sorry, you asked like 10 questions. Start with the first one.
So, I mean, pick any of the 10. Leasing. So explain to people kind of how leasing works and the fee structure associated with that.
Okay, wait.
And then why ultimately you went from leasing to sales.
Well, I went from leasing to sales. That's the easy one because it's more lucrative, and you're an office rat as a sales rep. As a leasing rep, you're always in the car. As a sales rep, you're mostly in the office. And I just thought for myself, longevity wise, it's an easier career with more money. It's almost a no-brainer. And as you had said, I came into sales at 28. I was young enough to do so. Now, to get into retail leasing is, there's tenant rep and there's landlord rep. With landlord rep, which I preferred, is you work with a landlord, they have vacancies. As a sales representation, what I do now is we hate vacancies in centers. You have to deal with pro forma rent and the way you're analyzing a property. But as a retail leasing rep, you love vacancies because that's where you make your money. So when I analyze properties, I'm able to see what's the best use for that vacancy, whether it's a nail salon, a medical use, something for a child daycare, whatever it is. So I'm able to think more creatively and imaginatively than maybe the average sales rep because I have that retail leasing experience. With retail leasing, you work with the owner, and sometimes you get a local, which would be like a nail salon, a hair salon, something like that, or regional. Maybe it's a franchisee that's in a few other states, or a national, such as a Burger King or a TJ Maxx. And I've dealt with all of them. When all of the linens and things went out, all the TJ Maxxes came in. When the, Toys R Us properties went out, they were filled with the Bob discount furnitures. And, there's always a tenant that's going to take over. There's the highs and the lows of the market. And as long as you can ride those waves and realize there's always deals out there, that's what creates successful brokers.
So again, talk to me about kind of the ebbs and flows of what's been going on. So obviously retail was big. Amazon hit, COVID hit. Retail really at one point kind of fell off a cliff for a period of time. Now it seems to be more office. But plus, well, actually, I don't want to load up too many questions at once. So let's talk about kind of what has gone on with retail in the last 5 or so years. What have you seen, and where is it now?
Service. Anything to do with service is going to thrive. Anything Amazon proof. You still need to get your bagels. You're not going to get them from Amazon. You still need to get your nails done, your hair done. There's a lot of coffee shops now that cater to moms that have kids. So there's like little playgrounds in there. People are becoming more creative. There's less little clothing stores, less boutiques, but there's more of a push for something service or something that you or even convenience. 7-Eleven does well in a down economy, does well in a great economy. You're not going to order a slushie online. You're not going to get your quick your cigarettes, whatever it is that you buy at 7-Eleven, they do very well. So if you own a center or are leasing a center or are buying a center, from whatever aspect you're looking at it, you want your tenant mix to be able to survive good times and bad. Obviously, Kohl's, a store like that is going to suffer. They sell all clothing. They have me personally, when I shop for my kids, I shop online. It's a pain to go into a store, walk in. What am I going to get? So when you have larger tenants like that, it's scary. But when you look at 5 stores, 10 stores, and it's a nice mix of maybe you have a pizza place, you have an insurance agent, you have, a lot of medical has come into retail centers. People don't want to go into a large office building that's, overwhelming. It's, doctors have gone out on their own. And whether it's, a child's urgent care or a dentist, those are even in retail centers for the convenience of it.
So the interesting thing is conventional thinking, which is usually wrong, would say, hey, I want like a big national. That's what I want. But the interesting thing seems to be that the survivors are the more local mom and pop type businesses, the barbershops, the pizzerias, the bagel stores, the nail salons, stuff like that, which is kind of an interesting shift.
It depends on the tenant. Now, if you're talking about a Chick-fil-A or a Burger King or something that to me is more recession proof, I would disagree with you. I would say no, like a fast casual net lease deal. You don't have to deal with the management. You don't have to deal with the roof. You don't have to deal with anything. You just kind of put your money to sleep and you collect the first of every month. But if you're talking about a Walgreens, a few years ago, everyone was really hot on Walgreens. Right now, not so much. If you're talking about a Best Buy, a Hobby Lobby, a Kohl's, it's more of a risk. It's definitely more of a risk. If you're buying a Chick-fil-A, it's going to be a 5 cap, which the higher the cap, the more risky the investment. So the lower the cap, the safer the investment. So when you see all of these 5 and 4 caps, it could be a Dunkin' corporate guarantee. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with buying one tenant. If they leave, they could be easily replaced by another fast casual. But when you have these larger stores that sell something that's not Amazon proof, that's where the way that I value deals is slightly more risky than either the local neighborhood strip center or, again, like a recession-proof type freestanding tenant.
So where have you seen retail trending in the past, 3 to 5 years? Is it getting better? Is it staying the same? Where do you see it going?
In the next 3 to 5 years or in the past 3 to 5 years?
Oh, good segue, actually. So how have you seen it changed in the past 5 years? And then where do you see it going in the future?
So the past 5 years, a lot, especially in 2020, just a lot of tenants that were already on their way out left, and viable tenants replaced them, which only made for stronger strip centers. I couldn't sell a strip center in 2020. And luckily, our office handles triple net properties nationwide, and Long Island strip centers, taxpayers in the boroughs, etc. Everyone was going after net lease properties, and that's what I did. I was successful in it. We sell everything from Texas to Missouri to Wisconsin to Ohio, and people will make a lot of money out of net lease properties. Now, where I think retail is going the next 5 years, I don't have a crystal ball. I hope there's no more COVID, but because we already went through that change in tenancy, and the tenants have a true purpose for the consumer, meaning it's not just your boutique. Maybe it's a kid's party space, or again, something medical or something for personal use, convenience. I don't see it decreasing because
have vacancy rates been trending down over the last 5 years?
I believe so. I don't have the numbers, but just from what I've seen. From what I've seen, there's much less vacancies. And when there are vacancies, they're filled quicker, which is more important.
So kind of like a two-part question. If I'm somebody who's looking to go out and buy retail, A, what makes a good retail strip? And then B, what do you see as kind of like the hot tenants that are moving in right now? And then what kind of space and locations are they looking for?
If you're looking for a good retail strip, assuming you're not at retirement age, because if you are at retirement age, it makes more sense to buy more of a safer net lease type property. But let's say you're not, you're young, you're hungry, you want to manage, you want to get, down and dirty, you'll deal with vacancies. You want to not necessarily look for what's the hot new tenant. You want to look for a stable center with a nice tenant mix, and more importantly, the location. Location. It's nothing new. Everybody's heard it. But if you lose a tenant, are you going to be happy or sad? I want you to be happy, thinking I'm going to be able to get more money now. This tenant's been in there for 5 years. I can definitely increase the rent. I don't want you to be sad thinking this is a sleepy area. I was really lucky with that tenant paying a high rent. I don't think I'm going to be able to replace that. That's going to be a problem.
Okay. So your advice really to people that are looking for considering a strip is location. Like, how important is the parking? How important is the traffic count? All of that stuff. Like, should people be looking for certain minimums with things like, 5-to-1 in parking, or 3-to-1, or 7-to-1? Should they be looking for a minimum with a traffic count? Is it worth it to pay up at a lower cap rate for a better product long term? What is your opinion on that?
All investors are going to have a different idea of what works best for them. I have buyers that only buy like in Great Neck, Rockville Center, where it's downtown locations where there's all walking traffic. Me personally, I don't like that model. So I'm just going to tell you what I personally like. What I personally like is a strip center with 6-7 stores, parking in the front, nice, clean, good location. There's no magic of parking ratios and, if it's a good location, it's obviously going to have a good, vehicles per day.
Yeah.
But I don't always go on those demos. Sometimes they're wrong. I go there myself. I go in and out of the stores. Are the shelves well stocked? Do they look empty? There's a lot of other things to analyze than just numbers and, what's on my computer, what am I Googling? It's actually going there and seeing, are these tenants viable? Am I going to have to replace 1 or 2 tenants? And let me work that into my numbers. What kind of customer is shopping here? Do I want to be in a lower demographic and possibly deal with some issues, but pay, but get a nice return? Or go to a better demographic like a Manhasset, but pay, more aggressively, but I don't have to worry about going there at, 1 o'clock in the morning for if there's an emergency.
So let's talk about the sales side. So you went from the leasing side to the dark side of sales. What what has changed? How do you see sales going? Especially like you're dealing with a lot of triple nets, like you were saying before. Interest rates in like 30 seconds, in the blink of an eye, went from 3.5% to like 7%. That must have literally shocked the conscience of the triple net space for at least a year. What have you been seeing going on, and what do you see going on now?
I would say this year compared to last year was more of a down year. I would say any election year is going to be more of a down year, regardless of interest. I don't want to say regardless of interest rates, but mixed with the interest rate, mixed with the election year, there's a lot of uncertainty. And once that all ferrets itself out, I
Yeah.
am seeing an uptick. I would say the past 2 to 3 months, easily, a lot more activity, a lot more is trading.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. People, I've been hearing that constantly, like, hey, things are slower or this or that because it's an election year. And the irony is, like, the day after the election, doesn't matter who gets elected, we're all going to get up, we're all going to go to work, and it's all going to be relatively the same shit. It's just interesting to see, how people get all jammed up over that. The interest rates definitely, like, do you see a lot of people in triple net deals that are basically stuck
Yes.
because yeah, they bought at a 4 cap or a 5 cap or a 5.5 cap. They had dirt cheap financing, and now they can't get those numbers anymore.
Hopefully they don't need to, though, because they either sold their strip center, was in a 1031, didn't want to pay the tax ramification. They basically have a 2% interest, and they were, they're just holding it long term. As long as you had that mindset, I don't look at it as you were getting burned. You're getting a great rate. You're still getting a building. You're not going to be able to flip it in 2-3 years, but a lot of people took advantage of that and built their portfolios. They could always refinance against it. There's a lot of creative ways that you can use those properties to buy others.
So as a broker, though, as a commercial broker who does a lot of triple nets, did you see that when the rates shot up? Did you see that business basically dry up, or was it still consistent?
It was a slow dry up. It took sellers a long time to come, back to reality of the numbers just don't make sense. If the interest rate is a 7, you can't sell for a 5. Those
Yeah.
days are just gone. You miss the boat. So sellers either realize A, they're no longer sellers, or B, if they are, they have to, get in line with what would make a deal realistically, as opposed to what would make a deal 5 months ago.
So are you starting to see, like, it takes people a while to come to that realization, though, because they hold
Yes.
out. So are you starting to see people come to the realization that they're not going to get that number? And are you starting to see more properties trade and more bargains out there in the retail space?
I'm starting to see more, but the market is still limited with viable deals. There's not a ton of deals out there, but at the same time, the deals that are out there, the sellers have a motivation to sell. And as time passes, and when I say time passes, even if it's a month, their numbers may change, and that becomes a closed transaction.
So I'm interpreting that as, and you tell me if I'm wrong, sellers are starting to come to the realization that they're not going to get those numbers. And depending on whatever their motivation is or pain point, it's starting to loosen up a little bit, but it's still kind of pent up.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Got it. That makes sense. What other asset classes within the commercial sector do you like? Do you feel are hot? Do you think people should show an interest in? Is it medical? Is it self-storage? Have those things kind of mellowed out? I mean, obviously industrial was massive. prices. I wish I bought more industrial. I'm so pissed. I remember like 5 years ago seeing industrial buildings for like $80 a square foot. And I'm like, and then they went to 100. I was like, this shit's going up too high. And now they're like $300 a square foot. And I'm like, God damn it. Like they were renting for $6 to $8 a square foot. Now they're renting from like 15 to $25 a square foot. And I'm pissed at myself.
Who's renting them? That's interesting with like the longevity of the tenant.
So, I mean, industrial space, from what I understand, and I'm not an industrial expert, crazy amount of demand. I think that they built a lot of it, so it's starting to mellow out. You know, there was a lot of guys up on the North Shore that built those big Amazon buildings. I see a lot of that stuff vacant. But what I hear is really the hot market for industrial is those 1,500 to 3,000 square foot, you know, class B, class A type of industrial or flex space where you have these small type of businesses, maybe they're internet businesses where they need a little bit of office, but they need warehouse space. So it's like a flex setup. Those things, from what I understand, are very, very in demand.
I see. So to get back to your question on what I like, I've sold a lot of mixed use property. And I think the desire for them is it's easier for someone to wrap their head around owning a few stores, retail stores on the bottom and residential tenants on top, with the mindset of those residential tenants aren't going anywhere. And if they do, they're easily replaceable, especially on Long Island. It's an easy way to kind of get your foot in the door and have a nice mix. And if you do lose a tenant, you're not so worried. So
yeah, I love mixed use. I'm totally into it. The only thing for me in my experience is I've never been able to, and this is most of this is smaller mixed use. So you'll have like one store or two stores and you'll have, let's say, 2 units upstairs or 1 unit upstairs. Sure. I've never been able to get the numbers to really get together. Like I like value add stuff. So I buy stuff that's completely trashed with the biggest problems you could possibly deal with because I'm looking for the most upside. I'll deal with the evictions. I'll deal with the houses that have, you know, garbage stacked to the ceiling and dead animals and fleas and all that. You name it. I'm happy to deal with that stuff. But I find that even the distressed, like C and D class, small mixed use buildings, the numbers just don't work. Like they want 5 and 6 caps and you have to put like 300 grand into them. People or even 7. People want a lot.
Right.
Like you can't buy it an existing 10 and then refi at a 7 and build in the equity. I haven't seen a lot of good deals around like that.
I haven't seen a lot of good deals around like that in general, regardless of the class, including strip centers.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, really, and listen, you guys do an amazing job of, and it's hard because I know a lot of commercial, like you guys hit the phones. I know that you guys are literally banging the phones every single day. And the shitty part is a lot of landlords, and mostly I think it's smaller mom and pop kind of inexperienced landlords, don't see the value in brokers the way that they should. They view brokers, and this is on the residential side also, as an expense. And some of them are an expense because some people suck. Let's, call a spade a spade.
Sure.
But a good commercial broker or a good residential agent is really a value add. It's an investment in you selling your property. So I know the battles that you guys go through of calling people, listen, I have buyers, but hey, I don't want to sign something, like send people over. I'll pay you if you can bring me a deal. It's just, they don't make it easy.
Well, that's the nature of the business. And to almost circle back to what you had said earlier, the barriers to entry can seem overwhelming, but again, it's not about the knowledge. It's about you wanting to succeed in that field. It just comes internally.
No, it makes sense. I mean, at the beginning, it's just sheer determination and drive. And then obviously it's a process and you learn while you go. It's just a lot of people aren't cut out for that level of rejection at the beginning. So, and a lot of people need to get paid. So just out of curiosity, from the day you started, well, you started on the leasing side, so a little bit different. So let's talk about sales. From the day you started in sales, how long did it take for you to get your first paycheck?
So I'm not a great example only because I started in retail leasing
Yeah.
and had 10 years of sales background in real estate. So I started in July of, I think, 13 at Silver. July, August. For like the first 5, 6 months, I completed 2 deals. Completed.
Yeah, that's a lot. All right. So what
Yeah.
about when you started out leasing it? You're 19 years old. You're 19 years old and you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna lease your building. I'm brand new." How long did it take you to get your first paycheck?
I don't have my book in front of me, but I remember my first deal was it was Van Heusen in Levittown Mews on Hempstead Turnpike. Wilbur owned the center. I don't remember the details of the transaction, but I do remember that was my. I have an article of it. It was
How
within the first year.
Okay, but like a decent amount of time. Like you didn't go out there and 2 weeks later you had something to lease and you were ready to go. Like it
It
takes
took
time. Like
time. Yeah, sure.
so like your advice to somebody, because there's a lot of residential agents that want to do commercial, but they just can't get over the hump. What is your advice essentially to somebody who wants to be on the commercial side? Maybe they're not in real estate at all. Maybe they're a residential agent and like, yo, I want to go for the big bucks. I'm tired of selling $500,000 houses and dragging people around to open houses. I want to start selling 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, $20 million properties.
My advice would be as long as you're financially comfortable for a year,
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's
just
like if you're going to go into commercial, make sure that you have your oh shit fund and your bills paid for a year
yeah.
because most likely, even if you're running hard, you're not getting paid. You're not getting a paycheck for a year because
Even if you're running hard, it takes, let's say, on the best day possible, 2 months to get paid, which is impossible.
yeah, no, and commercial deals fall apart all the time. Like all the time. There's due diligence periods, there's environmental. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that goes on that in the blink of an eye. Plus, there's deals that are, subject to like different development deals that
Yep.
go on for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. It is literally like you have to stack up your pipeline and just be like, all right, one day it's going to close. But you have to be prepared. And a lot of
Yep.
people aren't financially prepared and emotionally prepared to take that level of a beating for that long.
This year, you talk about emotional. This year was my most difficult year for not the reason that you think. I had my second child, came back to work in January, and my husband and I decided that he was no longer going to work, that I was just gonna, that was gonna be it.
Wow.
He was gonna, be with the kids, and it was all gonna be on me.
Wow.
And the pressure of that, not even actual finances, looking back at what I've previously made, looking at our expenses, just the pressure of knowing it's all on me, 2 kids, 2 cars, mortgage, everything,
Yeah.
just mentally is in the beginning was a lot more exhausting than it is today. It was a lot to just stomach.
Yeah, no, I get it. I remember. So before this, I owned a Mako Body Shop franchise, and my father owned a different one. But my father never worked with me, and his partner, who was the sales guy, trained me on sales. And I remember that moment where he was going back to my dad's shop after training me, and he was never coming back again. And I had to hire and train a salesperson, and I had that moment of like, holy shit, this is all on me. If this doesn't work, it's my fault. And that level of responsibility could be crushing. Can be
Yes.
crushing to somebody.
Yeah, it could actually be, it could be detrimental, and, every day you wake up, it's like Groundhog's Day. But if you could, and that's why I always started off with, it's not about what you know, it's about who you are in this business, and not about who you are as in who you know, but who you are as a person. how are you scrolling on TikTok and on Instagram as like you're on the phone with people, or are you genuinely invested in the call? Do you understand what you're even pitching or what you're talking about, or do you have any background of the center, or are you listening to what the other person is saying? It's a lot more of being present on the phone and also believing in the success down the line.
What are, as out of curiosity, when you're calling these people and so obviously you guys pull data, you're on the phones and you're calling people to see if they want to sell. What are the 3 biggest objections that you get from people when you call them?
Every call is different and it's not so cookie cutter like that. But let's say that I was calling someone that had a strip center. They said, no, I'm not looking to sell. There's certain people that there's no reason to overly push. But if someone says something like, not yet. Oh, are you waiting for next year? Yes. It's all about planting seeds and treating each call individually. So when you say objections, the objection is always to eventually get a listing and eventually sell the property. But each person's situation and scenario is unique. Maybe I call someone and unfortunately they're in debt, or a family member just passed away and they want to talk to me, but they don't have the time. Be kind, be gentle, but you can still follow up with that person. You don't have to just attack them with your objection, your objectives, per se.
Do you have a methodology behind who you guys are targeting? For example, on the residential side, we have a machine of outreach, both inbound and outbound, and we target very, very specific people, and we have all the KPIs, and we literally like watch all the data. Like Saturday, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to go through the last year's worth of accepted offers, and I'm going to scan them for commonalities, townships, years of ownership, distress indicators, etc. Are you just calling everybody?
Everyone.
You're just like, I'm calling everybody.
Everyone. I don't care if you're a multi-billionaire or you're a little old lady that lives in Tennessee that owns something on Long Island. Well, everyone and everyone.
Are you scanning for years of ownership? Like, are
No.
you dialing in, or you don't care if they bought yesterday or 30 years ago?
So let's say they bought yesterday. What would be the purpose of my call if they bought yesterday?
On the sales side?
Just on a call.
Just to introduce yourself and offer any kind of,
Are you looking to buy?
Oh, shit.
Hey, I just saw that you purchased this property. We have a lot of off-market listings. Are you looking to acquire? Are you looking to purchase more? Yes, of course I am. Now all of a sudden you form the relationship. Now here's the most important question. Is there anything else in your portfolio that you've owned long-term that you would consider an offer on to sell?
Damn it, that was good.
Every call can turn into something. Just because we don't have the information doesn't mean it's not there.
Do you then ask them who else in their network might be looking to buy or sell commercial real estate?
Not really, only because I don't want my listings out there so much anyway, especially for someone that I haven't vetted. And for the most part, if I'm sending a listing to someone and they have a network of people, they're going to send it out to those people anyway. And once I form relationships with people, I constantly get business back. They're, my friend wants to buy, and, my number is kind of given out in that way. But I never outwardly say, do you have anyone else in your network looking to purchase? Because I already have thousands and
Well, I would say buy or sell. So the only reason I'm saying this is because we tested this recently, like a quarter ago, and I got all my field reps. I was like, listen, here's the deal. Every single person, I don't care if they don't take our offer, curse you out, whatever it is. You say to them very specifically, who else do you know that is looking to buy or sell? Not, do you know anybody? Who else do you know? And our referrals ticked up like 30%. Just from asking that question that way every single time.
Yeah. That's interesting. We've never done that, and I think especially on the selling side, and even if one out of 1,000 times, if you get a lead like that, it's worth the question.
Yeah, I just try it out. Don't try it out. It would be interesting for a quarter. Every person that you talk to, whether they wanted to work with you or not wanted to work with you, or working with you, whatever it is, who else in your circle is looking to buy or sell real estate right now? Can you
Okay.
make an introduction? And just do it consistently and track it. And I would be curious to know if it works. It definitely can't hurt. But
Yeah.
obviously, if you don't ask, you don't get. So the more times you ask that, and you're already on the phone with them, you never know. And it is really worked. I mean, it gets so crazy that people refer us their family, friends, people they know in other states. Yeah, my buddy in Connecticut's looking to sell his multifamily. Like, a lot of times the deals don't work, but the concept works.
Right. Sure. No, I like it.
So, in conclusion, what is your best advice to, I mean, we touched on this a little bit, but I want you to kind of jam it home.
Okay.
If somebody is out there right now and they're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, because this is all over the place, and they're like, I always wanted to be Amanda Gordon. What is your advice to them on what they should do? Because obviously you've walked the path. Like, you've been in this business damn near 20 years in different capacities. What is your advice to 19-year-old Amanda Gordon who wants to be in commercial real estate?
Action. Just take action. Take the first step into applying somewhere, learning the business, even if you have to start part-time. Everything's about action. And a lot of reasons why people don't take action is fear. Fear holds you back. Even with me, I have fear. I have fear with, I invest in properties myself. And there's times where I just want to say, I don't know if we curse on this, but I just want to say, let's do it. Okay, let's just say fuck it. And just buy the deal. Just buy the deal. Let's just see what happens. But there's a pit in your stomach that says, oh, I don't know, I'm risking all this money. And when you walk into our industry of retail sales or retail leasing, there's the fear that you're wasting your time, because you wouldn't be wasting money, you'd be wasting time, or possibly the loss of another more secure income. But if you don't take the action and the first step, you'll never know.
Love it. Amanda, I appreciate your time. I thank you for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, Amanda Gordon, I know her, I love her. You now know her. I'm sure you love her. Amanda, if there's anybody out there looking to buy or sell, or has a friend or a family member or someone they know in their circle that is potentially looking to buy or sell any type of commercial real estate, how do they get in touch with you?
Call my cell, 516-732-7079.
Love it. Handsome home buyer, cat P, no cat P, house, land, no house, commercial, deed. I don't care. If it's anything real estate related, I want to buy it. 516-777 sold. That's a wrap.